Welcome to, or back to, Forgotten Hollywood, the channel where I take you back in time to show you the movies, shows, and actors that have faded over the years. As I showed in my previous video on the history of the superhero movie, masked Avengers have been around for over 100 years. Many different heroes have come and gone, but a few have endured the test of time. One such hero is Batman. Released in print in 1939, Batman quickly moved to film with a serial in 1943. This was followed by a TV series in 1966 and a theatrical movie shortly afterward. However, these versions are known for being light, family-friendly, and filled with moral lessons for a young audience. That all changed in 1989 when Tim Burton released Batman. Unlike his colorful predecessor, this Batman was ruthless when dealing with the criminal element. It was not just a bam or pow to take them out. It was life and death. Keep in mind that this Batman emerged out of the tail end of the 80s action movie, which is a whole video in itself. The point is that this was at a time when heroes could kill without upsetting the audience, not something done in superhero movies prior to this era. This was not a film aimed at children, despite the McDonald's toys being released with the sequel, and the earliest I can find with a rating over PG. This is where the superhero shifted from a genre for children into the realm of the adult action movie. This trend has continued, especially for comic book movies, to this year with the release of The Batman.
Fear is a tool. But when that light hits the sky, it's not just a call. It's a warning.
I'll be honest, I was skeptical going into this film. I had not seen enough of Robert Pattinson's work to be confident that he could take up the iconic cowl. However, I was pleasantly surprised. Other than technical issues I will address later, the way the character was handled was very good. The noir feel was perfect for the return of the detective role. And I would like to add that the first appearance of Batman was in Detective Comics. This was always part of his character, though recent years had shifted Batman closer to James Bond than Dick Tracy. You can see his process as he puts the pieces together, old school legwork, and following leads to find the man behind a string of grisly murders. On the detective aspect of the character, I'd like to return to the Tim Burton Batman, as this version was also a detective, though he relied on his Bat computer more than Adam West. He did put together the necessary clues to foil one of Joker's plans and pass on the solution to the local media, saving countless lives in the city. In the same way, the Batman showed the hero conducting two investigations simultaneously. The first was on who was committing the murders. The second involved the motive behind the murders. In this way, both Batman characters kept their roots firmly in the Detective Comics. Another similar feature of these two movies was crimes the heroes foiled. Both showed Batman dealing with petty criminals and mass murderers. Both of the major villains had more than one crime they were part of, though Jack Nicholson's Joker seemed to throw in a few random crimes on a whim. Paul Dano's crime spree as the Riddler was more calculated, and he didn't do anything at random. The Riddler was not far off from Frank Gorshin's portrayal in 1966, as he was also more competent and calculated than a majority of the show's rogues gallery.
My dear rats, to disturb your slumber, but I believe you are working for me.
I should also note that the 1989 Joker clearly took inspiration from Cesar Romero's version, who schemed alongside Frank Gorshin's Riddler in Batman's first feature film. Now, we can't talk about the Caped Crusader without mentioning the most fluid character in the movie. From Alan Napier's formal butler in 1966, to Michael Gough's warm father figure in 1989, to Andy Serkis's ex-military collaborator in 2022, Alfred Pennyworth has been exactly what his Batman and Bruce needed. Though the characters themselves differ, each one is a confidant and friend to the hero, not to mention being in a position to cover for the many disappearances of their employer. There is also the matter of the love interest. In 1989, this was Vicky Vale, played by Kim Basinger. While not as well known as some of the others, Vicky was actually an early girlfriend of Bruce, going back to the 1940s. In fact, her first appearance in film was in the second serial in 1949, a full 40 years before her next appearance in the Tim Burton Batman. She is a news photographer, often getting herself into trouble when she tries to capture the big story, and she is attracted to Bruce rather than Batman. The more recent movie featured Selina Kyle, also known as Catwoman, who had an interest in Batman rather than Bruce. This mirrors the 1966 TV show where Julie Newmar's Catwoman also falls for the man in the cowl, even going so far as to propose to him.
Anything's better than facing prison again.
I'll do everything I can to rehabilitate you.
Marry me.
Everything except that.
The current version, played by Zoe Kravitz, is more subtle than the earlier one, though she also suggests a partnership.
Come with me. Get into some trouble. The bat and the cat. It's got a nice ring.
Another important character is Gordon. In the TV show and Tim Burton's movie, he was the commissioner, but the recent film takes place earlier in the timeline, where he is still a lieutenant. Common traits among every version across the years include honesty, integrity, and loyalty. While Neil Hamilton's TV version was rarely seen outside his office, the Tim Burton one, played by Pat Hingle, is seen in the field directing officers. Jeffrey Wright, in the most recent film, has a more hands-on role, working alongside Batman to find the truth and hunt a killer. The relationship with the police is where the 2022's Batman takes us back to the 1960s. While modern cops are not as enthusiastic to work with a man wearing a cape, he still investigates the crime at the scene with Gordon's permission. The two of them going over riddles together is straight out of the TV show. As someone who grew up watching Adam West scale walls, I love the throwback. It was a nice touch. The last character to focus on, or should I say characters, is the double identity of Bruce Wayne and Batman. In the 1960s,
Ringside table, Batman?
Just looking, thanks. I'll stand at the bar. I shouldn't wish to attract attention.
Robin, you haven't fastened your safety back belt.
We're only going a couple of blocks.
It won't be long until you're old enough to get a driver's license, Robin. Then you'll be able to drive the Batmobile and other vehicles. Remember, motorist safety.
well, no other Batman was quite like Adam West, and his Bruce Wayne was much the same. You see, every Batman is a product of their time. They adapt with an ever-shifting society to be the best hero for their Gotham and the world as a whole. The late 80s created a darker hero and a more relaxed alter ego.
Alfred, they need some more wine in the front room, and someone named Mrs. Daly needs a copy of the menu. Oh, and, give Knox a grant.
On a personal note, I would like to add that Michael Keaton is my favorite live-action version, as he pulls off masked hero and billionaire in a way that would convince people he's not spending his nights hunting criminals dressed like a bat. Then again, Michael Keaton has a very good range. The reigning Batman, Robert Pattison, did a fair job with what he had. No, it's not my favorite portrayal, but the script changed the character from past interpretations. First, instead of a billionaire playboy, he was a billionaire recluse. This Pattinson did well, giving the character an almost social awkwardness. This was a good cover for keeping people at distance without being suspicious. His Batman was also quiet, similar to the Tim Burton version, and very calculated. He fit in beautifully with the Gotham created for him. The last aspects of these films I want to touch on are the technical and the aesthetic, which really go hand in hand. The look and feel of the film heavily depends on things like set design, lighting, sound, costumes, and color. While the 60s was bright and bold in all of these things, 1989 introduced a much darker, cool palette. The color scheme was mostly black and blue with Batman, and other muted tones like browns and grays with Bruce Wayne. In the new movie, red has replaced blue, but the muted tones remain. This creates the feel of long nights and somber days, which works in both films and reflects the modern era of comic books. Unlike other examples that take it a step past comics into comical. The soundtrack works with their respective films, but this leads me to the one big critique I have of the Batman. The volume of the background noise was set to almost the same volume as the dialogue. For me, this made them cancel each other out, and it was very difficult to follow along when I couldn't hear most of what the characters were saying. And, though I appreciate the use of shadows, some of the scenes were so dark I couldn't make out what was happening either. So I had no clues to help with the lack of discernible dialogue. Needless to say, my second and more enjoyable viewing was with subtitles. Whether it's Adam West chasing Cesar Romero or Michael Keaton tangling with Jack Nicholson, Julie Newmar flirting, or Robert Pattinson working with Zoe Kravitz, Batman has spanned across generations and shows no sign of stopping. Each new version pays tribute to those who came before, while adding something of their own, making him an ever-changing hero. That is why he endures, and I look forward to seeing what comes next for the Bat of Gotham. Thanks for watching. Which of the Batmans featured was your favorite? Or did I miss yours? If you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to click the bell for notifications. Let me know in the comments if there's a sequel or remake you'd like to see featured, and I will catch up with you next time.